The chemicals of life run human DNA. Chemicals are substances made of one or more elements bonded together, which generally indicates the chemical interaction that happens between the substances. A chemical substance is a form of matter, having constant chemical composition and characteristic properties. However, when discussing the fundamental process of DNA, we are primarily concerned with the proteins, which are the chemicals of life. The human biology is made of the same chemical composition as the macrocosmic structure of the planetary body, which has a DNA template that translates into chemical DNA substances that function to activate the light body's Merkaba state. The chemical composition which awakening humanity is being currently exposed to on the shifting planet is generating an atomic transduction process that is changing the elemental makeup of the human biology, especially with the onset of purging Enki DNA overlays. This has mysterious connections to the active spiritual warfare of the bioweapon and the rapidly shifting planetary body reconnecting to the mother of life as the combined world of forces present choices that are to be made by the higher expression of each individual, whether they are aware of that choice or not. In order to generate the chemical DNA sequences that allow the human biology to shift into higher dimensions beyond the current location from where they were incarnated into this 3D realm, the human body must activate a minimum of 4 dimensions of frequency within their DNA template. If the individual remains positioned at 3 dimensions of frequency running in their DNA template, they become locked into the same 3D space in which they were born. The being is unable to accrete or absorb the chemical DNA sequences that allow the physical body to undergo the atomic transmutation process that upgrades the elemental body in order to replenish the internal life force currents. During the planetary ascension cycle, if the consciousness becomes phase locked into the physical 3D layers, the being will need to drop their physical body in order to continue their spiritual evolution in another body, one that is made upon the future dimensional plane that their spirit has chosen for them. Guardians also describe the fail-safe resolution to this current problem is the existence of the Trinity Gates. The Trinity Gates are designed for the majority of the human population that currently exist at 3 DNA strands. Because of this Trinity coding at 3 DNA strands, these gates can be accessed from the Earth plane in 3D, making transit easier for some groups, either stuck in the planet from eons ago or more recently. They are able to be moved into a safe space where they can be transited, briefed, and supported in order to rebuild or repair their DNA from planetary miasm distortions and carried over traumas that helps them to be freed from the alien hybridization overlays and progress into the higher dimensions and continue consciousness evolution. The angelic human race was originally created with a 12-strand DNA template, 12 sets of 2 strands, a double helix formed from 2 complementary strands of nucleotides that are held together by bonds made between the bases. The corrected Diamond Sun template holds the blueprint of the chemical DNA chains that form into the father male and mother female genetic pairing base for building the correct sequence of chromosomes, for which there are a total of 144 chromosomes. There are 12 fire letters in each DNA strand that are designed to catalyze a chemical reaction, which builds out the 12 chromosomes per strand, and these are directly connected to the chemical translation process of sugar phosphates that form into 12 nucleotides, which form into the genetic pairs of the double helix DNA ladder. The nucleotide-based chemicals are that which form into the genetic alphabet of the ongoing chemical DNA translation of deoxyribose or sugar phosphate instruction sets that initiate from both the mother and father genetic imprint during DNA assembly. To form a strand of DNA, nucleotides are linked into chains of deoxyribose sugar along with phosphate, which together makes up the sugar phosphate backbone in deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. However, it has surfaced that as a result of checkerboard mutation used for gender reversal imprints, Enki DNA overlays, and subsequent alien hybridization of angelic human DNA, the sugar phosphate backbone was missing, the correctly synthesized genetic pair bonds of the organic mother and father lines. Hence, the human race has been missing the correct sugar phosphate instruction set required to activate correct genetic pair bonds from mother and father genes inherited from their biological and spiritual family of origin. This particular genetic digression is responsible for the missing chromosomes, for there are 12 per 12 strands, equaling a total of 144 chromosomes, which are critical for properly encoding proteins for building our DNA ladder. With the invaders' agendas for genetic modification to usurp and even eliminate the mother's DNA language from the planet, the human race suffers without properly functioning mitochondrial DNA that is unable to effectively generate the new proteins for DNA synthesis for activating the crystal gene. If the DNA had been functioning naturally, the genetic sequences of the mother and father lines would generate their respective sugar phosphate instruction sets to build the DNA base code and acceleration code into genetic pair bonds of natural chromosomes, which further forms into the sugar phosphate molecules that perform as the chemical process of building the DNA ladder. The sugar phosphate inherited from the mother line provides the blueprint for the 12 DNA base codes of the magnetic particle imprints that are gained from the mother's genetics, along with the sugar phosphate instruction sets which form into the 12 DNA acceleration codes that are inherited from the father's genetics. The checkerboard mutation in the 11th dimensional Stargate was intended to function as a DNA scrambler and gender splitter of the 12-strand Diamond Sun DNA template, in which to scramble the cellular alphabet and extract the sugar phosphate instruction sets which prevent the base 12 nucleotide formation, which has caused genetic mutations. The genetic mutations are caused from scrambling the electromagnetic pairing between the mother's magnetic codes and the father's electrical codes, further scrambling the sugar phosphate chains, interfering with every natural chromosome and genetic component recorded in the DNA. Angelic human DNA expresses itself through a cellular alphabet, which arranges itself into word patterns, which exhibit the same kind of numerical model that is found in many written languages. For the angelic human race, our inherent genetic language is expressed through the mother DNA language, also described as Anuhazi language, the first sound language that was spoken into universal creation. Similar concepts of detecting these word patterns can be observed in nature and are found in the genomes of organic living creatures on the planet that have retained the language expression of the original creator, which are encoded through the nucleotides. Nucleotides are the basic building blocks of nucleic acids, and nucleic acids are the building blocks of DNA and RNA. DNA contains all of the genetic information to construct cells in which each DNA molecule contains millions of atoms arranged in a unique sequence, while RNA translates this information into specific instructions for the assembly of proteins, then transmits the information outside of the cell nucleus and helps to assemble them. The types of proteins and the length of DNA are different for each species, but we share with all other people and all other forms of natural life the same set of amino acids, the same nucleotides, and the same genetic code. So it can be expressed that proteins are indeed the chemicals of life. A nucleotide consists of a sugar molecule attached to a phosphate group and a nitrogen-containing base. So that means nucleotides contain the elements of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Science defines the four main bases found in DNA as adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. However, with recent planetary activations, the base 12 frequency fire letter upgrades, and re-encrypted elementals are for generating a total of 12 nucleotide chemicals per each DNA strand. Spiritual activations will begin to open conduits for protein synthesis for building corrected nucleotide base pairs that will begin activating the non-coding genes into actively coding genes. We learn that the missing gender pairs and chromosomes are critical for activating the corrected gene coding sequences for building the proteins we require to activate the dormant DNA. Guardian Host takes the position that the section of unplugged DNA, formerly referred to as junk DNA, is because the nucleotides that combine into gender-based pairs do not produce the correct number of chromosomes that are needed to encode instructions for making proteins because they were unplugged by the invaders. Thus, for the sake of our discussion, we define the smaller number of nucleotides that are encoding proteins called exons, and the much larger number of nucleotides that are not encoding proteins called introns. We must define that there are chromosomes that are missing from genetic modifications that have a section of DNA which control the exon and intron activity, which act to bond chromosomes together. And this generates a chain reaction in the DNA to activate the turnstile blueprint in the nucleotides. This turnstile activation is being highlighted during this phase and is the major process of what totally changes the atomic structure and chemical DNA imprint through a DNA braiding process. Apparently, current events of shedding Enki DNA overlays and lunar transfiguration combined with cosmic cycle spiritual activations with the Alesa Mother of Life principle allows for the chemicals required for the Diamond Sun template to braid into the correct genetic pairing sequences for building the 12 double helix strand DNA template, which prepares the ascending physical body to become trans-dimensional through atomic transmutation changes that are occurring with the transduction sequence birth imprint. Although the outer world is mired in the world of chaos and terrible suffering, it is important for all ascending people to not buy into the narratives pushing for extreme division and remain calm and spiritually connected by choosing to maintain focus upon building your direct relationship with God in authentic ways that demonstrate the law of one, which is the law of love, as your moral compass and spiritual guide for ethical conduct, as this is all that is really needed. Beloved Christos family, dark forces and shadows will continue to agitate us through our energetic weaknesses caused from pain, fear, and avoidance, in order to generate as much confusion and misery in the human mind as possible. If we are feeling mental and emotional pain, we must be willing to do the inner shadow work and ask for spiritual help through prayer and meditation in order to come to some resolution that allows neutrality and acceptance to replace the pain caused by soul wounding. The more clarity we have developed within, the more authentic we become, and the stronger our energetic aura, which makes it easier to repel dark forces while we navigate the dense fog of spiritual warfare. May we gather together in perfect peace and allow our loving hearts to lead the way forward. May peace be with your heart, mind, and body during these chaotic and challenging times. Please only take what is useful for your spiritual growth at this stage and discard all the rest. Thank you for your courage and bravery to be a truth seeker. Until next, stay in the luminosity of your avatar Christos Sophia heart path. Please be kind to yourself and to each other with a loving heart until next month.